Okay, Hilchos Melicha, all these halachas that we never thought we would learn. Okay, so Simin Lamed Vav, Sif Yud Aleph. So Yehei Abasar Munach B'Milcha. We're going now through the process of how you salt. Oh, by the way, yesterday I think I said I typed something wrong. I said that if you don't have time, so you don't have to soak. Really supposed to soak the meat for a half hour. If you don't have time, I think I typed it that you soak it. You just only soak part of the meat. No, you have to soak the entire meat, just not for a half hour, just for a small amount of time. Because once you put so yesterday we said that you have to soak it and you have to make sure it's not too wet because then the water will melt the salt. And we said you can't have it too dry because then the salt won't sit on the meat. So it has to be somewhere in the middle. Then the next step is the salt has to be on the meat for an hour. 24 minutin, regoim, which means 24 minutes. Yud Beis. When it's in there for the proper time, which we said is an hour, you have to knock off the salt very well. Then you have to wash the meat 3 times and with different water, right? Not the same water, right? Wash it very well. The Isha Yiras Hashem Yeshla, because back then the women did this. Isha Yiras Hashem Yeshla Lashkiach Ba'atzma Al Hadochas Abasar. She has to be very wary to watch what's going on. Because sometimes the helper who carries the water to tzamtzem, she cheapens out because she doesn't want to carry so much water. So the dam, and it might come to be eating an isser of dam. So the frum woman, the owner, has to make sure that everything is being done correctly, right? Same thing like in the kitchen. The women ask if you could have the guy. This is no matter yid, but can you have the guy check for bugs and the lettuce? It's you can't. Can you have a guy check the eggs for blood spots? Also, you shouldn't. That's not as bad. I mean, you can't trust them. Make sure you don't put the meat into a kli that has no water before it was washed. Because like we said yesterday, you want to make sure the blood has to have where to run off to. Otherwise, it'll get reabsorbed back into the meat. By birds, you have to make sure you cut off the head before you soak it. And if they salt the bird with the head, then they ask a shelas chacham. And you have to do the same thing by a behema. And then you should also cut off the wings of the chicken or the birds, whatever it is. Okay, you dalit. The meat that was not yet salted, don't put it down in a place that sometimes has salt. Now that's very easy to happen because it's in one room and you're salting. You put the meat down in the places that sometimes you put the salt. That's not good. And you should have a special utensil meant just for this. You shouldn't put vegetables into this kli, or fruits, and similar things, things that normally don't get eaten without washing. Because blood with basar gets stuck to the kli, when a kli nidbak behem, and the kli, from the kli, it touches them. So now, what it means by this is that the din is, and this works with treif kalim too, if you're allowed to put, like let's say, milk with meat together, if the regular derech is to wash off that food, meaning as you go grocery shopping, so now everything's in packages, but way back when, you didn't have packages. So when you put milk or cheese, let's say, and meat in the same basket, right? So if or vegetables with meat and then use it with milk, etc. So if the derech is to wash it, so now we're not afraid, right? It's all cold, so we're not afraid of taste going from one to the other. We're afraid is that there's there's some residue. So if it's something that you always wash off, so then it's no problem. Right? So here we're saying that don't take fruits or vegetables that you don't normally wash and put it into these utensils because we're afraid that there's going to be some blood that's going to run off on it. Okay, you have to cut off the head before you soak it. And you have to take out the brains. The kroy has a krum sha'alav, and there's a membrane on top of the brains. You have to tear it with the shroisai and soak it. And salt it by itself. And the head has to be salted on the in and out. You can salt it even when there's hair on the animal or on the chicken. If you have bones that have marrow in it, if the bones are still connected to the meat, so you salt them with the basar, but yachad together, the way they are. But if they're separated from the basar, you salt them by themselves. And you don't leave them in the salt when it's next to the basar. So meaning if the bones are still connected, you salt it all together. If they're disconnected, then you have to salt it separately. Yud Zayin, Ragle Behemoth, how about the feet? So you have to cut off the nails. There's a word for that by animals, but the equivalent of the nails, toenails, so that the blood can flow out from, I guess, the holes that the nails will make when you pull out the nails. You have to leave it in a way that it's going to flow. And you also can salt them when it's on the hairs. Yudches, Halev, the heart, you need to tear it open because the heart pumps blood. There's lots of blood in there. So you have to tear it open so that the blood flows out of it. Yutes, Hareya, the lungs, to cut open the lungs with that's the big anybody have an article there? How do they touch the arteries? Okay, if somebody finds it, then you let us know. You have to take them out before you soak it. Chaf, hakoved, the liver, that's also very difficult because it has a lot of blood. Yesh by harbe dam. You cannot cook. Right? Cooking is in water. You cannot cook.
Open to its larger tubes, it says.
Tubes? Tubes. Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay, thank you. So now with the liver, we're in chaf. The liver has a lot of blood. So there's no takana to cook it. You have to roast it on a fire. That's where you get this whole thing of roasted livers. Right? You first have to cut up the livers and leave it when it's cut up on the fire so that the fire will draw out all the blood. And you have to wash the livers before you put them on the fire. And then when it's on the fire, you put a little salt, you put a little salt, and you roast it until it becomes edible. You wash it well from the blood that came out of it. And you have to be careful to wash it 3 times. Then you could cook them. Right? So meaning we have livers, so you can cook them. Once you do this process, then you're allowed to cook the liver. Hence, you'll get chopped liver and all that type of stuff. It has to be mamish on fire, not from heat. Heat is not enough. It has to be straight fire. You shouldn't wrap it in paper. To roast it that way. Even with flis pop here, even with cheap paper, you can't do it. The fire has to go directly onto the livers. And it also could be grilled, though. You can use a grill as long as it gets hot enough. But you should not salt the kaved before you roast it. The same way you salt basar. You're not supposed to do it that way. Because the main way you want to get the blood out is with fire. You certainly shouldn't salt the liver together with other meats because there's too much blood coming out of there. Okay, chav gimel hatchol, the spleen. Dina kashar basar. It's like any other meat. You also have to take off the membrane, which is also because that's considered chaylev. And you also have to take out the sinews. Not the rosh hagid, and you have to take one end of the gid, and you pull it, meaning you yank on it, and it pulls out 3 other sinews with it. But you have to make sure that none of them break, because if they do, then you're going to have to go in there and get it out of there. You have to go dig deep and get it. So the chalchailas, and the other, meaning these are all parts of the intestines. How do they touch chalchailas? Chalchailas is how do you call it? Oh yeah, the rectum. Right. I don't know why anybody's eating that, but fine. Anything having to do with the digestive system. You salt it on the outer side where the fats are connecting there. So this you have the stomach. The keva is the stomach of a calf, and the calf nurses, so it's got milk in the stomach. What's the story with that? So shoychen is hacholav koydem sharia. You have to spill out the milk before you soak it. Barehi kishar basa, and then it's like every other basa. Chavav beitzim shenimtzu b'seich oifes. So you have eggs that are found inside birds. Bein shem ketanim ha'oid, whether they're very small, bein shenigmu lugamri, or whether they're totally grown, the eggs. Imkli pasan, with their shells. In order to eat them, they're going to be soaked, salted, and washed. You shouldn't salt them with next to basar, and you should put them and you should also make sure to put them in a place where the blood will not flow onto it. And these eggs, even if they're totally not ripe, grown, or finished, also you're not allowed to eat them b'chalav. Although there's a whole section and the whole siman in Shulchan Aruch about, or half a siman, about when exactly an egg becomes parv. That's a question many people don't think about. You have an egg, so we're saying here that as it starts growing, it's part of the chicken, so it has a did meat. Well, at some point it becomes parv, right? Because eggs are parv. So is that only when it gets laid, or even when it's inside the body? So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is passing in the chumrah. He's saying that these eggs are considered, you're not allowed to eat them with milk. I don't know if he holds you have to wait 6 hours. I'm not sure. All right, fine. Okay, that's the end, right? That's Chavav. Okay, we'll leave the last 2 for tomorrow, Hashem, and then we get into a big one, the halachas of tefillas kelim, which it may be kedai to spend a little more time with it, because the shilas are so common. The tefillas kelim. All right, have a good night, everybody.